All right, I'm back with a review for a classic British horror film, and that is The Skull, 1965. This release is from Eureka, and The Skull is really a fascinating tour de force film that showcases Peter Cushing's talents to the utmost. It's probably his greatest film portrayal in the 60s. Amicus, if you don't know, Amicus was a partnership of two Americans, Milton Subotsky and Max Rosenberg. Max Rosenberg was the financing guy, the money guy. Milton Subotsky was the creative side, if you will. And they put out a bunch of what I call the horror anthologies. You've got Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, Asylum, Torture Garden, those type of things. But they put out this film in 65 based on a short story by Robert Bloch. The Skull of the Marquis de Sade is a short little pulp fiction novel. Milton Subotsky wrote the script or the screenplay, and at the end of the day, it really wasn't a full movie. It was maybe a 50-minute film at best, and they didn't know what to do with it, quite honestly. So you've got in this film about 30 minutes of padding. And this film, I think, is unique in horror history, and is that the padding works. The padding actually propels the film, and it's a testament to the director, Freddie Francis, that they were able to take a film as thin storyline as this and make a fascinating, you can't take your eyes off of it kind of horror film. Again, a lot of that's a testament to the acting of Peter Cushing. The music in this film is fantastic, and of course the direction and the creativity of Freddie Francis to spread out all these. I mean, it is what it is. It's padding, but it's padding that works, and it's just entirely unusual to see a situation, to watch a film where the padding actually helps a film, and this is probably unique in that respect. Chris Lee plays in this film as a art collector, if you will. He's the counterpoint to Peter Cushing, who is also an art dealer and art collector. And Peter Cushing has a penchant for the occult. He's into the occult sciences, and he's a collector, a hoarder. He's got his room is littered with all these occult images. There's a great scene at the beginning where Cushing and Lee are bidding for these 4 statues. One of them is Beelzebub and those type of things, and Christopher Lee in a trance kind of outbids everybody. Subsequently, he basically is friends with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. They're friends in this film. Chris Lee gets his hands on the skull, and the skull is stolen by a guy named Marco, who's played by Patrick Wymark. Patrick Wymark is an interesting character. He was in Where Eagles Dare. Died at 50 years old from a heart attack. It's terrible, but he's a fantastic British actor. He was excellent as the shady. He's kind of like a shady art dealer. Basically, he supplies Peter Cushing with all these occult artifacts, and some of them he steals, some of them we don't know how he's getting a hold of them. But essentially, he gets a hold of a book about the life of Marquis de Sade, sells it to Cushing along with the skull. But the skull is, of course, possessed with an evil spirit, and that's the storyline. You get long, lingering shots of panning shots of Cushing's room and Cushing reading the book about the Marquis de Sade, and tension-filled music, that type of thing, which in any other case is just. In any other instance, it would just be boring padding, but it really works well for this film, and I think it's just merely because you can't take your eyes off Peter Cushing. I mean, he can be sitting there smoking a cigarette, and it's interesting to look at. So you got a 4 or 5 minute scene where all he's doing is reading the Marquis de Sade book in his occult room, and the camera's kind of following and just taking in all the aspects of the room and all the nuances of Peter Cushing reading this book, and the tension is building and building and building. So yeah, I mean, it's It's a film that I saw as a kid at the drive-in, and I never forgot it. It's just a really fun, classic British. If you like British horror films, Gothic horror films, you got to have this, because this is Peter Cushing's tour de force portrayal of the 60s. You won't find a better performance. He's showcased in this film, and his talents are on full display. Now, interestingly enough, Christopher Lee has just really got a supporting role, but he does a good job in it. You've got Patrick Macnee in this as a police inspector, and of course Patrick Wymark is fantastic as the shady Marcus. Awesome film, great release. This film was restored by Eureka in its original aspect ratio. It's 2:36:1, which is kind of a letterboxed, widescreen letterbox look. It looked great at the drive-in when I saw it, and I guess that's what it was kind of made for. It ended up on double bills at the drive-in in the 70s. For a long time, it was playing in that, and the film was really shot, I think, to showcase kind of a widescreen look. This Eureka release has you've got the Blu Ray and the DVD. No real interesting artwork and there's the alternative artwork. You also get a booklet, which has a little write-up about the film, as well as a bunch of lobby card type stuff like that. This release has two special features. You've got a 30-minute interview with Jonathan Rigby, who's of course a big Hammer exponent, and then Kim Newman, who has also a 30-minute discussion about the film. So two great special features on this. Great release from Eureka, and I think you can pick this up relatively cheaply. Highly recommend it, particularly for those fans of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. This is a must-own from Eureka. So that'll wrap it up. That's my review of The Skull, 1965, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks.